So,
Cheers.
cheers.
Welcome.
We're gonna fill you in on how it's been going with us and where we plan to go from here as a band. And yeah, well, you know, there's been a lot going on in the past few years that you probably missed. The band, I guess, I don't know if you, I think you identify with this. I think we've talked about this one, but I feel like the band has like left the tribe, left civilization, and has wandered out on a sort of shamanic journey to learn things, and has, after years of travel, now sort of come back around and is wanting to speak and has new ideas. So, you know, it's as cool a narrative as any, and it makes me feel special. Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's cool. That's cool. I agree. I agree.
Dude, all right. How long have you known each other?
I think we met in 2002.
Okay.
Might have been 2003.
So
Think
that's
so?
it's like 13 years?
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It was a long time.
Yeah. When did we start playing music together?
We started playing music, I think in like 2004, 2005. I think we were first sort of jamming, like you were kind of jamming in the band that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of jamming bands you were, or checking out what you were doing. And then I think we started, you had some songs that was for, like you'd written some songs in like your head, I think.
Yeah.
You mouth sounded out a bunch of riffs that I learned on guitar, and you played drums. And
Yeah.
what did we call that first incarnation?
That was apocryphy.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember that was and the other direction was you had these riffs that, well, they were kinda metal. They're like more palm muting and crunchy, and wouldn't it be cool to hear it with the double bass?
Mm-hmm.
And your other drummer, well, a totally legit punk drummer, did not at that time play bass drums with both of his feet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know, I can do that. And so like that was some of playing with your riffs, and then it was really fun to incorporate our stuff early on. I found weirdly that our differences in writing style, our differences in musical background, our differences in approach to writing music, like you would just make shapes with your hands sometimes and then go like, cool, this one's cool. Oh, this one and this one. Okay, this one and this one and that one. And me, you know, I would need to meditate on a hilltop and imagine the perfect riff and then try to work out how to make it real.
Yeah.
So, but I found that worked really well. That actually the differences in our approach to music gave something that we made together a great deal of depth and sort of 3D-ness, or like it was a unique thing I couldn't have made on my own.
Great. Likewise.
Yeah. So, okay, we wanted to talk about places we've lived. Where have we lived?
Yeah, so we started to choose to live together. I think first, like, you were hanging out in my place, my studio in Redwood City so often.
Yeah.
I was just like, let's just
Got
be
to.
roommates. Let's just be roommates, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the first place we lived was the castle. That's right.
Yep. And that was
Yeah.
me moving out
Yeah.
from my folks' home for the first time.
Yeah, wow.
When you say castle, why do you call it a castle? What was castle like about the castle?
Oh man. So like us and our friend Kevin and other friend Jeremiah decided that we wanted to live on the top of a mountain in a castle. We decided that we were going to be billionaires and that it was just that was only a matter of time before that was the reality. And so part of that was
Makes sense.
choosing to go rent a giant second home on like 20 acres, the very, very top of Boulder Creek in the Santa Cruz Mountains. 2-hour drive to my job. Sure, why not?
Yeah. Well, your job, I mean, granted, you only commuted once a week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a difference.
So I was a flight attendant, so I drove there and back once a week, so it wasn't so bad. But this castle was on, I think it was 20 acres. Volleyball court, pool, four-wheeling, trails, just madness, trampoline, burnt the carpet. It was crazy times.
Yeah. Burnt the carpet with gasoline, trying to stay warm when the heater wouldn't work because it was fueled by the wrong stuff and could explode, killing everyone. So
Yeah.
It was an interesting castle. It was like this other rich guy. He really owned it, but he, like old rich guys like to do, preferred to live half the year in Florida, so as not to be too cold or wet, because Santa Cruz Mountains are beautiful, except when it rains.
Yeah.
I guess they're still beautiful, they're just also hostile when it rains.
Yeah.
And so we were basically there. He built a guest mansion in addition to the main mansion, where would be a very large, very nice home where we were from, above his 6-car garage, so that we could live there and keep the place safe while he was gone. So yeah, it was a crazy place to move out to. How do you think that spot affected our sound?
I think the constant loss of water and power and flushing toilets, like those were never dependable, as well as internet.
Yeah, a cloud in the sky, done.
We would lose all of those faculties the entire time we were there, including heating. Like, we didn't have heat a lot of the time. It was pretty crazy. It was very, very expensive for the 4 of us all to live there. And I think it affected the sound because of some of the isolation. I think living way out there, we didn't know anybody in that town.
No.
We, pizza delivery kid we would see once a month was the only person that we kind of knew who lived there. And so we were really cut off from any sort of local sense of community for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that affected the music in a way that made some things maybe more dissonant, maybe more dark, more wrenching. Because driving there, the roads were crazy. We really messed up some pretty cool cars.
Yeah.
Because the roads were so crazy.
Split open my oil pan twice.
Yeah.
My lower Camaro. It was freaking tragic.
Yeah, I couldn't keep tires on my Mitsubishi Lancer. They were just those constant flats, constant.
Okay, so some jarring turns
Yeah.
and more dissonant.
Mm.
Yeah.
How about you? When you were experiencing living in Boulder Creek in that sort of environment, how do you think the music you created then was affected by that space?
I went down to Santa Cruz, as I did sometimes when the loneliness of Boulder Creek became too intense. So sometimes a chap is in class and then sometimes he's not. And then so some days I'd be up in Boulder Creek, up on the top of the mountain, just no class for 2 more days, and no one's coming home. Drew's off somewhere. Girlfriend at the time lived in Menlo Park. And I was already, it was a fortress of solitude. It was gorgeous. It was incredible. And it was very difficult. It was very difficult. Those came together. And it was I commuted to have a life. I commuted to see the girlfriend. I commuted 3 days a week to practice in San Jose, which was insane. And, well, we carved.
And what band was that?
That was his Providence Scepter. Yes. And okay, how did it affect the sound? So you're commuting over there. So I would go away to this place that was far away from everyone. And it was a place so far away that normal people were scared of even trying to go there. I remember a buddy of mine, who shall remain nameless, said, fine, I'll finally. You know, you've been asking a lot, plus you have this really cool spot, and you've come to me like a zillion times. All right, I'm gonna take my girl, we're gonna follow you to your place, we're gonna hang out at your place. Let's go to Boulder Creek. One of the his text messages before all cell phone reception cut out because of the remoteness of the journey, were very scared. Like, it had gone past anger to fear. Like, where are we going? Where are you taking us? What's happening? Do you even know where this is? Do you even know where this is? Are you sure somebody's not gonna, like, hurt us for being on their property? And then I had to say no, because it's the property we're renting. And I don't think that one came across.
Yeah.
He was very freaked out by the time we got to the top of the mountain.
Can you describe our driveway?
Well, yeah. Steep, windy and steep.
What else?
So bumpy.
Holes.
Oh yes. Oh, the holes. That's right.
Crazy holes, bumpy, steep, windy, one lane.
All of a sudden, oh yeah, if somebody else is coming down, hope they're going slow. Hope they have their headlights on in the fog.
Oh my god. But we were above the fog line.
On the other hand, we did all this ridiculous sacrifice and then burnt through thousands of dollars and tanked my education. I mean, just I picked it up and put it back together, got on track, and did cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a little while, we had this amazing place where we drive up the mountain. We were really at the bald top of the mountain, so dense fog. And it was actually cool when it was really dense, because when it was denser, it would be a bit lower, a bit heavier. And so you'd pop out through the fog right at the top of the hill. Like, there was this, like, lantern in the darkness, like Sherlock Holmes Batman style, like this one lantern. And you get right past the lantern, poof, and it's beautiful stars above and a sea of fog, like a sea of white on all sides, except for the little tips of the mountains, the next mountains over.
Yeah, and we were on one of those very tips.
It was incredible. And so it was bleak, lonely, full of weird problems, lax.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no food, plus the roads are closed. Shit.
Mm-hmm. Time for more Diet Coke and frozen chicken thighs.
Frozen burritos, as the case may be, you know. So it affected my part of the sound by I wrote some really haunting stuff out there that was beautiful to me, and yet bleak, and sort of accessed parts of myself artistically that are impossible to say to others in words, because they're the parts that come out when one is very alone, because they don't have words for them. It's just for a space within itself, and some of that came out. And I learned to write with some of those feelings melodically. When I can't say, I still can't explain some of the stuff that came out of that era and its effects entirely. But it's cool. I do see its shadow in my writing. Like when I want to make something otherworldly, and that's like intriguing and it's like spooky at the same time. And spooky at the same time. That place. That place. Okay. Sure.
Cool.
Okay. Where else?
Cool.
Where else?
Well, after that was San Jose. After that, that's when we practiced in the garage. We had this 4-bedroom house in South San Jose, a big 2-car garage that was nestled in my sweet-ass 68 Camaro. We played tons of black metal in the garage.
Yes.
And that was the era of the artist formerly known as Blue Guitar. Blue Guitar guy.
And yeah,
he had many names.
Invictus was how he was known as an artist in our bands. Yeah. I mean that was his name of power.
So It's the era of Invictus, Corazon, and us, and we were recording. We recorded a demo in the garage in 2008, and it was pretty shredding and gnarly and raging. And it was the first thing I'd ever recorded on drums. It was 8 months after I had started playing drums.
Yeah. That was incredibly impressive for 8 months.
Yeah. Cool. So we're living in San Jose. I mean, that's what we did there. We practiced that in the era of Phil and Adam. And I guess that was like, those were also the guys that we did that one crazy summer where not only did you have like super school, right? It was like double.
It was like a spring, right?
Yeah.
Because the tour was in the summer. And
So we wrote the album, recorded it, set up a tour, went on tour.
Yes.
I bought a 60-foot 1969 wooden motor yacht in LA and motored up the coast, all in the same summer.
Yeah. Well, within the same like 6 months or so. It's like a spring and summer, a lot of that. Because all of us setting up the tour, right? You know, like recording the album, mixing it, that was in the spring, me graduating and finishing all the. Like I had this situation.
I remember like finishing touches happening to the album, like pretty close
into
to
early June.
Yeah, I remember like it was not done when the summer was already. We were still working on it.
We had friends in San Jose who were helping us copy the CDs,
right?
Getting ready for the tour also, and just all kinds of people were trying to help us out.
Printed paper at Lane's parents' house.
Yes.
Huge stacks of that, and all folded and made. How many? 300?
Something
like that. 300 CDs up of our first full-length album. S.P.Q.R.
Surrogate Panoptic. Yeah, we had long titles. Some interview about us said that if there's like an Olympics for metal, we could easily win in several obscure categories, such as longest song, most words in a song, longest title of song, and they won. So, okay, how did San Jose affect our sound? How did San Jose House? I have an idea. Do you?
Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. That's myself a question. All right. How did San Jose House affect the sound? So, one of the things about the San Jose House that was weird was I had a piano. I had a huge piano, and it wasn't a grand piano, but it was tall and it was beefy, and I had all kinds of stuff on top, and it was in my bedroom. And so I had this grand old instrument, not a literally grand piano.
Stand-up, right?
Stand-up piano. In my room. And it was mostly in tune, but it was curiously out of tune at various points. That had resulted from excessive play. And I had gotten this one from my girlfriend at the time's family. And it was a beautiful thing. It was like old and scratched and partially out of tune, and I could play it whenever I wanted. And I wrote all kinds of music on that object. And there was this experience of writing music in San Jose that did affect my sound. It was on a partially out of tune piano, banging out, like teaching myself music theory. Because this was at the end of his Prophet and Scepter, and so I set about trying to take it as a positive. Like, well, okay, so if the old one's blowing up, and there's going to be a time until the new one's ready, then I'm going to do what I know I need to do. Okay, I'm going to learn music theory, and so I just decided to do it.
That's cool.
But it was my room, which was the sort of like the sunroom with a lot of windows, which they were calling a bedroom, on the front corner in South San Jose, where the sun shineth with great strength. And
it was a warm room.
It was super fucking hot, and so there I would be, and it's like it's like the band broke up, and then like later, my relationship ended, and we had also moved to this place that was stupid hot and very ugly. We had an ugly house. The grass was dead. Lots of car parts. It was terrible. We were the ugliest house on the block.
Yeah, we were the only.
By far.
The only one that looked like that.
The only one that looked terrible. However, I mean, it was also like just car lots and chain stores and broad avenues and tons of cars and us.
Suburbia for days.
What's that?
Suburbia.
Yeah.
Suburbia for miles.
And it was so fucking hot. And it was like, I had to say, there's this experience that I had oftentimes, sitting in my room, banging out notes on the piano, trying to understand what third's doing, what fifth's doing, and how do you how do you do this with one hand while doing that with the other hand, and listening to it and trying to commune with it. And it's hot and sweaty, and I'm like alone again, like Boulder Creek, but alone in the middle of the city, in a house with my friends. And yet there's this special space in the middle of all of that. So like the San Jose experience definitely brought sort of like, it's kind of like desperate heat to the melodies that I would write. It got very impassioned, not like it wasn't, but just sort of like a lot of desperate beauty kind of stuff. It was more active than the Boulder Creek things. Boulder Creek was more way out there, lonely, cold, bleak, desolate, but pristine and celestial kind of. And then San Jose was more yelling, weeping, more emotive, more also this like kind of trapped feeling. There's like heaviness from the heat and the ugliness, and like the realization that the situation was going to continue for many years. It wasn't going to be like 6 months. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna be years until I finish doing other things. Get out of here. Anyway, so I felt. How do you think the San Jose house affected your sound? Any thoughts on that?
I guess my environment at that time consisted of like a pretty challenging romantic relationship. That was really where I learned a lot. It's really interesting, like very long distance, very uncommunicative romantic relationship that was interesting. I think in the San Jose house era, that was something that contributed to the sound for sure. Because as I was now looking back, I see learning. But at the time, there was like tons of strife, tons of confusion, challenge, worry, unmet needs, and that colored some of the some of the way I would write drums. And I think that I can't imagine how it couldn't have, And so I think probably some of the feelings I was experiencing in that world was kind of coming out through a desire to go just as fast as possible in some instances.
Like to sort of like, is it like this for you when you play blast beat? Because sometimes it is for me. I feel like I'm like vibrating at a higher frequency than the bullshit of my life.
Yeah.
And it's like more me than it.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah.
Or like more us.
It's very honest if you're like blast beating as fast as you can for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very honest. You're displaying, the really cool skill, and it takes all of your focus. You have to time your breathing and stuff. It's a very athletic thing, and it's cool and that was painted by that for sure.
I tend to hear that wildness and I tend to hear sort of what I connect to what you're saying in the fills from that era too.
Yeah.
Your drum fills and transitions were like sometimes it's super hurried or but in this way that was like that was the art we were making at the time. Like
Yeah.
it's sort of like racing a little harder, then back off, and then finish it.
Yeah.
And like
I was used to say I played at the fringe of my ability.
yes, and that came through
Mhm.
for sure. You could hear the dynamics of it, like you're like I'm here, and it just we went with it.
Yeah.
I went with it.
It has its own
I connected
emotive,
with it.
yeah, connectivity to this. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, well, sometimes we weren't as tight as a lot of bands that we played with. We also tried way wilder stuff
Yeah.
than most of all of the time.
There was some craziness.
We were pretty experimental in that era too. That era had a lot of, well, why can't we put that next to that? We could do whatever we want. Sure, we can extend it 3 more minutes to include 2 solos and
No
we
problem.
fought them up. Everybody else is just wussing out at 7 minutes.
18-minute song.
980 words with maybe 1 repeating line. Yeah, 14 riffs. That one. No repeating riffs. No time for that. I mean, they would repeat once it started, but it wasn't coming back. Have your moment with it, because we're moving on.
Yeah. That's a zinger.
Yeah. Okay. So we wrote really avant-garde, but also very emotionally raw music at the time. That's something that that's a place we were all at. We were all like very struggling with the challenge of life, as one always does, but dealing with great adversity. And in some ways we kind of hung on to I feel like we hung on to the music. I know I did. I hung on to the music as a way to make difficult, ugly situations beautiful in spite of themselves, kind of. Like, I feel that some of the art of so-called dark music or just metal for me is this weird act of alchemy where you can take hideous sounds and arrange them in such a way that they're undeniably beautiful. And for me it's this incredible magic that I can take, and I write and I use that in lyrics. Like, I talk about very difficult things, but then I make them beautiful in my understanding of them and in how they're communicated, and the music is supposed to do that too. So it's like transformative when it's good. For me, when it's good, it's transformative. It transforms my mood, not by escaping the negative, but by passing through it, comprehending it, realizing the larger system that it's a part of, and then the consequence of like, well, if the negative part of this pattern is true, well, then the positive part of this pattern is true as well. And like, a lot of times I get that experience. I got that experience in the San Jose situation.
Yes.
Okay, and then the boat would be
boat.
next. So you bought a boat.
So I bought a
1969
mahogany
yacht.
It was like crazy awesome and crazy horrible. Horrible as in like challenging. The immense challenges of ownership and maintenance and bureaucracy and keeping it afloat, which eventually it sank.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, in the bay.
It was on the news. There was helicopters. So it was a very interesting time, and we practiced full scale drums, amps, PA, screaming, everything on that boat in the Berkeley Marina for some years. We lived on the boat in 3.5 years. And before we began practicing Nihlotep, we moved in. It's a longer story. I drove the boat from San Pedro to Berkeley. It took 6 days.
So that's Southern California, San Pedro?
Yeah, near LA. and that's a story on its own. But we get to Berkeley, and it's like tense immediately. As soon as we're pulling the boat in, it's tense. Like everyone's yelling. The captain that we would hire is shouting at the employees of the Berkeley Marina. Wow. Okay. So maybe we'll tell the story later. But we pull in, we tie up. Our boat looks crazy. It's like paint is ancient. It's bright white, faded, scratched off, paste blue trim, and all the like teak decks are super faded. The railings toast, and it's just like it looks old. It looks like it's been designed.
It looks like, you know how you see an old, half dilapidated Corvette and or Victorian home.
Yeah.
If you can somehow combine,
you put those
if
together.
you combine the charm and total crap of an old, dilapidated but technically still running Corvette
Victorian.
with a Victorian home that is also not like the people have been trying to work on, but there's always more, and it was both, right? Because it ran around, but it was also an old wood core.
Yeah. Big dual V8 diesel engines that were great. It was pretty easy to drive. But God, it's crazy. We painted it black, of course.
Of course.
Dude, what the hell
Naturally.
else?
Flat black.
Named it Naglfar.
It was named what?
Naglfar.
It was before that? What was its maiden name?
Its maiden name, or this was like probably its fourth name already. Life is good.
So we had to paint it flat black
Yeah.
and call it the Ship of Death.
Yeah, and so we painted over that,
Yeah.
and we had like really shitty foam and mattress stuff, and like egg crates and rope and bungees all in the second salon. This boat had two living
for
rooms.
soundproofing.
Right, for soundproofing for
yeah.
Nihlotep practice. And so we did all that before we started. We sent this letter out to our boat neighbors, or many people. We lived aboard. Many people lived aboard. And so we sent a letter out saying, hey, we're going to be practicing midweek from this, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. this week, and we're going to inform you, and thanks for your courteousness. And most people were fine with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Most people were great. There's a couple people
took time out to come say, yeah, go for it. Like, I got that from lots of people. So most people were cool.
a few rich people. I mean, a lot of people were rich, but it was really a huge scale. Like the Berkeley Marina has like the ultimate barely not homeless to like holy shit rich, all in the same place.
Stores with a hot tub on the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. It's like this is you have like a $2 million 50-foot yacht that you commute to your.
Yes.
You live in the Berkeley Hills and you take your Land Rover to your super yacht that you have a captain for. And he drives you over to work in San Francisco so you can do stock trading. That was
Not the ferry.
your yacht.
Yacht.
The captain. He drives them out and then come back, and then he would come back later to pick them up.
So was it really easy getting up here?
No.
Could you give the folks a brief synopsis of some of the factors that you encountered?
Brief synopsis.
Or a picture of how it looked for a moment?
Well, there was. It was very harrowing tale. It was really one of the most intense things I've ever done. I would say, like flight attendant training, driving the boat up from some of the most intense psychological, emotional, dangerous experiences. Driving the boat up, there was like a lot of stopping for repairs. There was a lot of emergencies. There were catastrophic delays, and people who were going to come on the whole trip decided only in Ventura that they couldn't go any further. They had other things to do. Crew abandonment. I mean, it was really intense, and it was like nearly sinking one time when we were out. And there were points where we couldn't see land, and just out there in the super fog, we went up through really crazy waters and in this ancient wooden boat
with older guys.